The big dog was barking yesterday in Columbus, Ohio, in the shoe. Ohio State 38, Indiana 15. What can we say about Ohio State after that game? For some folks, maybe it's as important to you when it comes to the college football playoff picture what we can say about Indiana after that game. We'll unpack both sides, but make sure you're dialed in here. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following me. Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. A great place for us to interact. We appreciate y'all in advance for being all the way locked in. So what I said at the top of this thing, I think, is how I feel leaving yesterday's game, or watching yesterday's game with Ohio State and Indiana. Felt like that big dog game by the Buckeyes, man. And that's not to talk down on Indiana. Indiana, I mean, thoroughbred. Great story. Fun thing all year long. I don't think you disqualify Indiana. More on them in a second. I got a Sig 10 hoodie, y'all. Like I got one from our friends over there at Bleacher Heads, and I hope my little girl grows up with the same level of self-belief that Kurt Signetti has in himself. Like that's 100% true. I'm not trying to dunk on Indiana, but like at the end of the day, man, Ohio State marked their territory yesterday, man. They did. Like Indiana is a lot of fun and very talented. And again, I don't mean to like backhanded compliment Indiana here, but like Ohio State has better players, and that was what showed itself yesterday. And not to be overly simplistic, but like you look at the score and you look at the box score rather, like Indiana had 2 yards a carry. Indiana had 151 total yards. Indiana had less than 100 yards both rushing and receiving. So like Ohio State, I think they had heard all that was said about Indiana. I think they had heard all the discussion, and they played like it. And also, shout out to Ohio State for having that edge in this game, because we talk so much about Ryan Day and his record against top 5 opponents, and we talk about, Ohio State and their home atmosphere. Like, Ohio State met that moment yesterday, which is not something you could say about them consistently over the course of the last few years. We keep seeing them peak maybe too early at different points in the last couple of years under Ryan Day. I don't think that's this team. So the overall talent gap and the overall intensity that you had to have in this game for Ohio State showed itself in a very clear way. Defense especially. Like, I think that Oregon game optically threw all of us for a loop a little bit because we see Dylan Gabriel throwing bombs and the success they had through the air. Like, Oregon's really good. This Ohio State defense, reminder, is also really freaking good. Now, would you like to see a little bit less of the pass interference and holding calls out of Igbenogson? Sure. But, like, let's not pretend that Indiana's not a good offense and that Ohio State isn't still one of the best, if not the best defenses in college football. All right? Like, I think that's pretty clear to say. Offensively, for them to have the day they had, 38 points, you'll never scoff at that. Now, obviously, within that 38 points, you factor in a Caleb Downs 79-yard punt return for a touchdown, so you won that phase of the football game. Bottom line here is Ohio State is still a national title contender. If there was any confusion about that or any curiosity about that, whether it was you think they should have beat Penn State by more, whether you think the Oregon game exposed them, whatever your opinion was about Ohio State before this game, I don't think it's possible to leave the Indiana game and say that's not a team that can win a national championship. In large part because the concern for you going into the year was, hey, is Will Howard a guy that can get it done for you? Y'all, they don't have to hide Will Howard. Like, Will Howard's not a guy they will win a national title in spite of. I think he's a guy that won a national title because of. And yesterday was the stat line like the flashiest you've ever seen. No, he was efficient. 22 of 26, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, the pick is what it is. That was a tip pass. I don't know you really put that on Will Howard, just so we're all on the same page there. I love the emotion he plays with. Now, can that get you into trouble at times? Sure, we saw that against Penn State. But I think he brings the edge to the table that they needed Ohio State. I think he brings that chip on the shoulder. I think again, I don't know this, but I think that he probably feels a little bit of wanting to prove himself kind of vibe, whether it be what he got back from the NFL when it comes to his draft grade. I don't know what the exact conversation was internally in Manhattan, Kansas with him and Avery Johnson, but like Will Howard plays like a dude with something to prove. And this is an Ohio State football team that I think, given the way the last couple of years have gone for them within that conference, they have something to prove. And the cigarette celebration by Will Howard, some people might say, it's too much. I don't want my quarterback doing that. I loved it. I want my guy that's the leader of our football team, that's the heart and soul of our locker room, to have that edge, to have a little bit of a nasty to him. Because if your quarterback has some nasty to him, your quarterback has that edge, guess what else? The receivers have that nasty. Your offensive line, your defense has that nasty. Like I love that temperature being set by Will Howard, because that's going to serve this roster well. It's not about talent for Ohio State. Never has been. Definitely isn't this season. It's not about that for them. It's about meeting the moment consistently. And they met that moment in a big way against Indiana. Now, we'll talk about Indiana here right now. Like, to me, it just came down to the inability to go out to the deep water with Ohio State. What I just said, like at some point in time, it's about having better players. That's what Ohio State has. And I don't think this disqualifies Indiana as a college football playoff team. Curt Cignetti getting the question yesterday, hey, are you still a playoff team? Do you think your body of the work warrants you being in the 12-team playoff? And he doesn't answer the question. Now, at that time, I don't know that he knew about Ole Miss losing. Obviously, Bama hadn't lost yet. Now, with the SEC chaos, Indiana absolutely should be a college football playoff team, should they finish the year 11-1. However, I think we saw pretty clearly yesterday they're not going to be a national title contender team. And that's not to dunk on Curt Cignetti. It's not down on Indiana. Like, Indiana won 3 games last year. It is what it is. It's impressive they are where they are. But there's still that gap pretty clearly between the big dogs in the sport of an Ohio State and where Indiana is right now in year 1 under Curt Cignetti. Doesn't mean they can't get there. I love the fact that they broke the bank a little bit or got the piggy bank out a little bit to keep Curt Cignetti for a while. And I absolutely love that. But, like, I think that at the end of the day, there's still a pretty clear line of demarcation between where Ohio State is right now and their roster talent when they're on and when they're rolling and where Indiana is right now. So the big dog made a statement yesterday in the sport, and Ohio State now, I'll say this, they keep on trending the way they're trending. Will Howard keeps on playing with that edge and that team takes on that edge. I cannot wait to watch them should they win next week and play for a Big Ten championship if we get that rematch with them against Oregon. So keep it locked right here. Make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.